प्रकाश, इशारा करना। Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Department of English, Government Lahiri PG College, Chirmiri, I, Dr. Aradhana Goswami, welcome you all in 7-day National Web Workshop, Issues and Challenges of Learning and Teaching English from Home in Pandemic. I extend my warm welcome to our patron and principal, Dr. Aarti Tiwari, who always guide and motivate us to be positive in all the aspects of life. It's my personal privilege and honor to welcome the resource person of this station, respected Dr. Iram Fatima ma'am. I welcome Organizing Secretary Dr. Kavita Krishnamurthy. I take the opportunity to welcome all the respected members of advisory committee and technical staff. I extend greetings of hospitality to all the teaching fraternity, research scholars, students, participants, and viewers of this program who are attending from different parts of the country. I welcome you all. Before I start the second day's technical session, I would like to introduce our eminent speaker of the day, Dr. Iram Fatima. Presently, she is working as a faculty at Ramanuj College, University of Delhi. She is also visiting faculty and academic counselor at School of Open Learning, University of Delhi. She did her master's in English literature from Lucknow University, and she is a gold medalist. She qualified NET with 99.27 percentile. She did her PhD in English literature from University of Lucknow. She has presented many papers in international and national conferences and seminars. She is editor-in-chief of the Journal of World Literature and Postcolonial Writing. She is an active member of many editorial boards of reputed journals. She has been invited in FDP programs as resource person. She has been coordinator in international web workshop. She has a good management and communication skill, and she is a creative writer too. She is a good teacher, administrator, and orator. She is very devoted to her work and institution. The topic of her today's lecture is disruption in verbal and non-verbal communication during online teaching. I humbly invite Dr. Iram Fatima ma'am for her presentation. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much, Aradhana ma'am, for inviting me as a resource person and for such an elaborative introduction. I feel honored and obliged. The topic of my today's lecture is disruption in verbal and non-verbal communication during online teaching. So, what is teaching? It is basically communication only. You know, we are communicating to our students, we are delivering our lecture. So, according to Keith Davies, communication is a transfer of information and understanding from one person to another person. It is a way of reaching others with facts, ideas, thoughts, and values. Communication or teaching is the process through which one conveys information, facts, ideas, opinions, emotions through words, signs, symbols, or body movements. Communication is an essential part of human life. We constantly keep on sending messages to different persons in different ways. Sometimes we convey message or information by speaking and sometimes by writing. But
Hello,
yes, ma'am.
Fatima ma'am.
Yes,
Hello.
yes, ma'am. Hello, 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 hello. Am I audible? Aradhna, ma'am, you are muted actually. Hello.
So, ma'am, can you
Yes,
hear me?
yes, ma'am. I can hear you. Shall I continue?
Fatima ma'am, please
Yes, ma'am.
share your full screen, ma'am.
Okay, okay, okay. Mm.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, yes, yes. You are now.
Hello.
Is it fine? Now is it
Ma'am,
fine?
you are audible, but please share the full screen, ma'am.
Yeah, I have shared the full screen now. Kindly check.
Uh,
I have shared the full screen now. Please check. So shall I continue? Shall I continue? Okay. Communication is an essential part of human life. We constantly keep on sending messages to different persons in different ways. Sometimes we convey message or information by speaking and sometimes by writing. But sometimes we do not use words to convey the message. Rather, we communicate it through body movements. So, in a layman language, I can say that all of us, we are social beings, and we cannot live in isolation. We are a part of larger society. We are dependent on each other to meet our personal, social, financial, professional, academic, and other needs. We talk to each other for this purpose and convey messages. This process is called communication. And communication is a natural activity of all human beings, which is carried out to convey our feelings, emotions, ideas, informations, thoughts to others through words, signs, signals, symbols, or body movements. And teaching. Teaching is nothing but communication only. We are delivering and communicating the information and ideas to the students. And no teaching can accomplish the goal without effective communication. In the words of Kuntz and Weirich, communication is a transfer of information from a sender to a receiver, with the information being understood by the receiver. Here, it is the process of communication, that how communication, or rather how teaching takes place. So communication is the process by which one person or group conveys the message. In the communication process, the sender is responsible for encoding the message and sending it through the channel through to a receiver, who then decodes the message into a perceived manner. The same formula, the same process is applied by the teacher who is teaching online or offline. The teacher is responsible for encoding the message and sending it through a channel to the students, who then decodes the message into a perceived meaning. It is through this communication only that the desired result of teaching is achieved. So, in the process, you can see there are so many components involved. So, let's take every component one by one. So, the first component, which is essential in teaching or in communication, is sender. So, here, while teaching, the sender is the teacher, right? So, When you talk about sender, so the person who conveys the message or information to another person is known as the sender. The sender must have the message, idea, information, or knowledge which he or she wants to convey to the receiver. He formulates the message which he wants to convey. The sender thinks what the message should be sent. He plans the message. Then the next component is message. In teaching, the message is teaching objective, the teaching plan of the teacher. So it is the subject matter of communication. So message, we can say that the message is the subject matter of communication or subject matter of teaching, which a sender or teacher creates in his mind and conveys it to the receiver. The sender creates a clear message in his mind. A message may consist of facts, opinions, information, various knowledge. Then the message, after all these things, then the message is communicated to the receiver. And in teaching, the message is communicated to the student. Then comes the next component, which is encoding. Encoding is actually a very important element in teaching as well as in the communication process. So what is encoding? The sender needs encoding skill. It will make the receiver understand the message clearly. When the sender translates the message into words, symbols, or some other form, he is using encoding skills. The effectiveness of encoding depends on different factors such as skills, attitudes, knowledge of both the receiver and the sender. Then comes the channel. These days, channel is actually very important and it is playing a very vital role. So communication is the act of transmitting the message to the receiver. Channels of communication include speaking, writing, meeting, memos, letters, reports, emails, text messages, chats, and faxes. And even it includes non-verbal communication such as body language. So during online classes, the channel is internet and the online platform that we use while delivering our lectures to the students. Channel is very important. If there is some problem in the channel, then the objective of our message and the objective of our teaching will not be realized and it will be defeated. And these days, there is certainly problems in the channels. There are some technical glitches, technology failure is there. So the communication process and the teaching process via online mode is not very successful. Then comes the next component of teaching, or you can say the communication process, that is the receiver, which is extremely important because there should be a person at the other end. So the receiver is the person who receives the message by listening, reading, or viewing. He is the person who actually receives the message, understands the same, and uses it for necessary action. The sender gives messages and the receiver receives the messages given by the sender. Then comes another important component, that is decoding. After receiving the message by the receiver must be able to decode the message, which means mentally processing the message into understanding. For example, sending a message in a foreign language that is not understood by the receiver will result in decoding failure. Suppose if I speak here in Russian language or in French language or in Tamil language, so you won't be able to understand. So there will be a problem in decoding. And in the same way, technology failure, whether on the part of the teacher or the student, will also result in decoding failure. Then comes the most important part of teaching and the communication process, that is feedback. You can see these arrows, these are going back from receiver to sender, right? Because the receiver is giving the feedback to the sender. So after understanding the message, the receiver gives a response to sender regarding the message, which is known as feedback. The effectiveness of the message or the lecture or the classroom is measured through the feedback. But in online classes, due to technical glitches, leave alone feedback, the students are even unable to decode and understand what the teacher is speaking, what the teacher is saying. There is a disruption in the whole communication and teaching process during online mode of teaching, because not everyone under the sky is privileged enough to have the best technology and the best gadget. You can see in this diagram, in this picture, that there is a disruption in the communication process. There's a lot of noise from encoding to the receiver. After all, we are not storytellers. It is not a monologue that only I'm speaking or only a particular teacher is speaking. All right, and the students should not respond. No, it's not the case. We are not telling any story. The students should participate, equally participate. They should give feedback. Only then the real objective of teaching will be realized. So I'll talk further about feedback. The reaction, response, or reply of the receiver is known as feedback. It is receiver's response to the message, and it confirms the receipt of the message. It is directed towards the sender. Like I showed in the last slide, can you see? It is directed towards the sender. Yeah, in this diagram, you can see it is directed towards the sender. The receiver is sending to the sender. And it completes the communication cycle, and it actually completes the teaching process. Response of students to the teacher will be called feedback. Feedback is an extremely important component of communication process. Both the sender and the receiver, they play a reversible and reciprocal roles in the process. And the receiver acts as a sender, and the sender becomes the receiver in case of feedback. Feedback can be used as a tool to measure the effectiveness of communication. The sender can determine the success or failure of his or her communication on the basis of received feedback. He or she can evaluate the outcome of his or her communication through feedback. Whether the message has been received by the receiver in the intended way, or correction is required in the message or the way of communication. It also allows the receiver to ask questions in order to clear his or her doubts as well as develop confidence. Understanding is the end result of any teaching process or any communication, but it does not imply agreement all the time. If receiver does not understand the message, then he or she can give his or her feedback in negative. On the other hand, if receiver comprehends the message, he or she can give affirmative feedback. Hence, feedback can be affirmative as well as negative. Feedback can also be verbal, spoken or written, or non-verbal in the form of smiles, sighs, nods, etc. So here are some advantages of feedback, which is there in this slide. Firstly, it confirms the receipt of the message. Then it enables the receiver or students to clear his or her doubts. It helps the sender to know the receiver's interest, and the sender or the teacher can make necessary changes in the message on the basis of received feedback. And most importantly, it encourages interactive communication. But my dear friends, in online teaching, this whole process is disrupted. This whole process of verbal communication as well as non-verbal communication is badly disrupted, because leave alone feedback, the students are not even able to hear what the teacher is speaking due to technical glitches. There are many a times it happened with me that students, they used to sign in so many times in between the lectures, and I had to admit them all the time in the meeting, because and there was no fault of theirs. Actually, it was the fault of the technology. What can we do? So let's move on to the next, that is one-way or two-way communication. So communication can include the transmission of information, opinion, feelings, thoughts, and emotions to a person or a group of persons. The sender transmits a message through words, signs, symbols, or body movements. And a receiver receives the message and interprets the intended meaning. When sender communicates a message without expecting or getting feedback, the communication is termed as one-way communication. Feedback is, totally absent in one-way communication. So, and let me tell you that no interpersonal communication is one-way communication. One-way communication, I'll give you an example of one-way communication. For instance, listening of a recorded song. When you are listening to a recorded song, you're not going back to the song or the musician or the singer that, no, I don't like this song or something like that. All right. So this is an example of rather one-way communication. Then coming to two-way communication, where feedback is extremely important. So as we know that communication or teaching, it involves the sending of message and receiving of feedback from the receiver. So both the sender and the receiver, they equally contribute in the process. The sender or the teacher transmits a message, and receiver conveys feedback of the message to the sender. So both of them play reversible and reciprocal roles in the process. When both the sender and the receiver actively participate in the process, the communication is termed as two-way communication. And this is what is really the objective of teaching, that it should be two-way. It shouldn't be, one way. Nobody is doing monologue. Nobody is a storyteller. Okay. So this kind of communication is also known as transactional communication. Why? Because the exchange of message and feedback takes place between the sender and the receiver. So giving instructions to the students and receiving their responses is an example of two-way communication. So let's come to types of communication. So there are, broadly speaking, there are two types of communication: verbal communication and non-verbal communication. So first of all, I'll pick verbal communication. So in verbal communication, in verbal communication, language is used according to the established rules of grammar, syntax, to communicate emotions, feelings, ideas, information, and to share meaning information. Depending on the way we use words, by speaking or by writing, verbal communication can further be divided into two categories: oral and non-oral, that is written. Apparently, these two kinds of communication are so common that to talk about them in detail would seem unnecessary. as one is a study of sounds and the other is a study of symbols. Oral communication is a medium of transmitting meaning by means of sounds produced by our vocal organs, whereas writing is a medium of transmitting ideas, information, meaning, etc., by means of graphic representation of sounds, symbols, which are made on a surface using some tool of writing or by typing on machines. Written communication is not merely copying oral communication onto paper. It has a different, dimension altogether. As in written communication, we organize our thoughts in a different manner and it is usually preserved for future reference. So, verbal communication is a use of words to share information with other people. It can therefore include both spoken and written communication, as I already told you. And verbal communication is further divided into oral and written communication. This also I told you. So let's discuss about verbal communication. So verbal, it means expressed through words. So the communication with the help of words is called verbal communication, and the verbal communication is badly disrupted in online communication, online teaching. These words can be taken from some language, and all the formal communication is carried out through words, which can be spoken as well as written. It can spoken communication or the communication employing speech is known as oral communication, whereas communication through words is known as written communication. And both are components of verbal communication, where language is an essential requirement for both. So let's come to oral communication. Oral communication, it means transmission of message through spoken words. So when we are delivering lecture in the class, right now what we are doing is oral communication. Okay. In this type of communication, the sender and the receiver, they exchange their ideas, feelings, emotions, thoughts, or information through speaking and listening channel. There can be two or more persons involved in the process who transmit the message through spoken words. The speaker makes use of some precise and distinct sounds, and the receiver hears and decodes them to understand the meaning of communicated words, phrases, and sentences. They can do so either through face-to-face interaction, as we used to do in our normal offline classes, or with the help of some mechanical or electronic devices, or via of online classes. And moreover, oral communication, it requires the presence of both the speaker and the listener at the same time. Non-verbal means like body movements, facial expressions, eye contact, etc. are an essential part of this form of communication. And use of these means enhance the effectiveness of communication. Both the speaker and the listener observe the movements and derive meaning from the non-verbal cues as well. The listener also has the opportunity to speak back, which enables two-way communication. It can be informal, that is with friends, family members also, or formal, at a formal occasion like a meeting, class, seminar, professional presentation, etc. And oral communication, as I already told you, that it also takes place from some distance, like online classes, but it requires some mechanical, electronic, or electrical device like phone, mic, internet, etc. to transmit the messages. In most cases, non-verbal means are not a part of this form of communication. What I mean to say is that in online teaching, to some extent, objective of verbal communication is realized, achieved, like we are somehow able to manage and deliver lecture, deliver notes and everything. But so there is not much disruption in verbal communication during online teaching, but there is a total loss, total disruption in non-verbal communication during online teaching, because tone of voice and pace of delivery sometimes they take priority over other expressions, and it is a common form of delivery, but these things, these aspects are missing in online teaching. Now coming to written communication, which is also a part of verbal communication. So written communication refers to the transmission of message through written or printed symbols. It is the act of writing, typing, or printing symbols like letters and numbers to convey a message. Information is exchanged in writing with documentary proof. It is essentially a creative activity and requires conscious efforts, and it is carefully thought out. The writer makes use of some stationary material to write the message, and the receiver understands the meaning of communicated symbols through reading and decoding process. It can be used in informal as well as formal communication, and written communication is transmitted through words in the form of emails, chat, memos, manuals, letters, magazines, books. And like here, I want to include one thing, is that I told you that oral communication, you know, is somewhat disrupted during online teaching. In the same way, this written communication is also disrupted in online teaching. How? I'll explain. Uh, you know what happens sometimes, the students, we explain some other thing, then students, they ask questions out of those things, then we later on we see that, oh, this is the message. So somehow everything gets mixed up, everything is a chaos out there. So uh, though most of the times we are able to manage the problems, we are able to solve the problems, but like uh, but it is somewhat disrupted. Verbal communication is somewhat disrupted in online teaching. So now I'll tell you all some tools to improve verbal communication. Though some of the tools, we won't be able to use while teaching online or in online classes. So as you know that there are a number of tools and techniques that you can use to improve the effectiveness of verbal communication. These include reinforcement, reflection, clarification, and questioning. So coming to reinforcement. Reinforcement is a use of encouraging words alongside non-verbal gestures such as head nods, a warm facial expression, and maintaining eye contact. All these, they help to build rapport and are more likely to reinforce openness in others. The use of encouragement and positive reinforcement can encourage others to participate in discussion, particularly in group work or particularly in classroom, But don't you think so that this reinforcement process is not possible in online classes? Because you cannot do, you don't have any encouraging words, frankly speaking, because here our full support goes with the students to make them understand what we are teaching. So this reinforcement was totally missing. So and then show interest in what other people have to say, then pave the way for development or maintenance of a relationship, then it allay fears and give reassurance, and it shows warmth and openness, and it also includes reduces shyness or nervousness in ourselves and in others. Then questioning. This is also, this aspect of verbal communication is also badly, affected, badly disrupted in online teaching. Questioning is, broadly how we obtain information from others on specific topics. Questioning is an essential way of clarifying areas that are unclear or test your understanding. And it can also enable you to explicitly seek support from others. On a more social level, questioning is also a useful technique to start conversations, draw someone into a conversation, or simply show interest. And effective questioning is therefore an essential element of verbal communication. And there are two types of questions, closed questions and open questions. And closed questions, these are somewhat possible in online classes, but as far as the open questions are concerned, these open questions are actually suffering. So let's see how. So closed questions, they tend to seek only a one or two word answer, often simply, yes or no. And they therefore limit the scope of the response. Two example of closed questions I've here, I've given. First is, did you travel by car today? So the answer should be simple, yes or no. Okay. And then the second question is, did you see the football game yesterday? Or like, have you completed your homework? Something like that. So these are, closed questions. Only, or we can say objective type question, which one word question rather, which demands only yes or no from the listener, from the student. And these type of questions allow the questioner to remain in control of the communication. And this is often not the desired outcome when trying to encourage verbal communication. So many people try to focus on using open questions and more of. Nevertheless, closed questions can be useful for focusing discussion and obtaining clear, concise answers when needed. So now I'll give you an example of open questions. So open questions, they demand further discussion and elaboration. They therefore broaden the scope of response, and here our teaching objective is actually realized when the students are into open questions, when they are into elaborative discussion. Okay, so I've included some questions over here, which which are an example of open questions. Like first one is, what do you understand by reader response theory? So you understand now that here the student is not supposed to give answer in yes or no. Here the student is need to give a comprehensive and elaborative answer. The next question is, what do you feel you would like to gain from this discussion? This is also an discussion based question. Then next is, critically analyze the poem, the road not taken. The road not taken. So these are open questions, and when the students are able to answer these type of questions, only then it is clear, that it is very much clear and understood that they have understood what we have taught. And these, open questions, these are actually not available, not possible actually, not feasible in online teaching, because somehow we are managing the online classes. Maybe it will take, another 5 to 10 years to run smoothly the online classes. But as of now, it is badly disrupted, let me tell you. So an open question, because open questions, it will take longer time to answer, but they give the other person far more scope for self-expression and encourage involvement in the conversation. Next is reflecting and clarifying. Reflecting is the process process of feeding back to another person your understanding of what has been said. Reflecting often involves paraphrasing the message communicated to you by the speaker in your own words. You need to try to capture the essence of the facts and feelings expressed and communicate your understanding back to the speaker. It is a useful skill because you can check that you have understood the message clearly or understood the class and understood the lecture clearly. The speaker gets feedback about how the message has been received and can then clarify or expand if they wish. So these, four concepts, they are actually missing in verbal communication during online teaching. And verbal communication is an important element, no doubt, but only part of the overall message is conveyed through this. No communication is complete without non-verbal communication. So there should be a balance between verbal and non-verbal communication to achieve the objective of communication and the objective of teaching. So let's see now the non-verbal communication. So, as it is a very famous proverb that actions speak louder than words. So true. Why? Because sometimes words fail to convey essence of the message, but actions, facial expressions, gestures, and body movements make the meaning very much clear and transparent. Many a times, expressions appear unintentionally and enhance the effectiveness of communication. The communication without use of words is termed as non-verbal communication. So, non-verbal communication refers to gestures, facial expressions, tone of voice, eye contact or lack thereof, body language, posture, and others. And other ways people can communicate without using language. So, the communication without use of words is termed as non-verbal communication. It includes the sending and receiving of wordless messages. So you see, when even there is a failure in the delivery of words in online teaching, so leave alone the wordless messages, what to say about it. So spoken or written words are not used in this type of communication, and it is the process of conveying a message without use of verbal language. It helps in making a message clear, effective, complete, and forceful. You remember we used to play, during childhood, dumb charades. So that was an example of non-verbal communication. And non-verbal communication is an ancient form of communication, and it has existed much before the development of language. Gestures, signals, postures, facial expressions, body language, and sign language are some of the components of non-verbal communication. Other than these, tone, pace, and pitch of voice also contribute to the meaning of a message. Generally unplanned, but has more impact than verbal communication. And it often goes along with oral communication. And if used appropriately, both of them supplement and complement to each other. And this form of communication also helps to communicate with a deaf and dumb, an uneducated or intellectually retarded person, or the person not knowing the sender's language. So, coming to various, elements of non-verbal communication, which is extremely important because, these things we used to enjoy in class, the non-verbal communication also, but in online classes, it is not possible actually. It is badly disrupted. So, we generally believe that communication is not possible without spoken or written symbols, but non-verbal language plays a vital role in the process of communication or in the process of teaching. The studies reveal that in our social and professional life, we use non-verbal language more than verbal language. So, first of all, it includes body language. So, human body plays an important role in the process of communication. All the body movements, such as expressions, gestures, postures, are guided by our feelings and thought processes. Movement of different parts, body parts, such as hands, feet, eyes, shoulders, and head, etc., express the feelings and emotions and attitudes of a person. All the body movement act as symbols and contribute to the meaning of a message. For instance, nodding head up and down conveys agreement. Shaking head from side to side means disagreement. Movement of hand is a mark of greeting. This movement forms a language which is known as body language. It is prominent and an important medium of non-verbal communication. An intelligent observer can understand the language easily. It can be learned consciously as well as unconsciously. Um, in the offline classes, when we used to have a normal classes, so there we used to understand that so and so student is not interested and is sleeping or fidgeting or whatsoever. But in an online class, it is actually very difficult to, see and know that who is actually listening to us and who is not, because most of the times the audio and the video of the students are, they mute themselves, because then they give excuses that ma'am, the background is not good. So we also allow, okay fine, we have to be considerate with them. So here, we actually don't understand that whether they are actually present or they have just logged into the meeting and they have just gone somewhere else. So the whole teaching process is badly affected. So next come kinesics. So the study of body's physical movement for the purposes of communication, that is the way our body communicates without words through various movements of its parts, is known as kinesics. A speaker conveys messages not only through spoken words but also communicate through body movement. He or she uses different parts of his or her body to transmit the message, which can include the head, face, eyes, shoulders, and heads. This transmission is made sometimes consciously and sometimes unconsciously, because body conveys message, mood, and attitude of a person in the same way as language uses set of signs and symbols to convey a message. Many a times, body begins to speak even before the speaker starts speaking. The way in which the speaker stands, walks, moves hands, holds the manuscript is noticed by the audience and gather impressions. As it is essential for a speaker to pay attention to the body movements, it is equally important for the audience to learn and interpret the intricacies of body movements. The study of non-verbal behavior of body movements that forms a part of non-verbal communication is known as kinesics. It includes the interpretation of movement of a particular body part, or a body as a whole. So now coming to elements of body language, which is extremely important in non-verbal communication and which are missing in our online classes. So these are some elements of body language. Head. So head is a part of the body that communicates in different ways. Holding head high marks honor, confidence, and self-respect, while lowering of head indicates the feeling of politeness and modesty. Jerking conveys rejection, while nodding communicates appreciation, understanding, interest, agreement, or confirmation. Then comes eye. Many a times, we make out in offline classes, we used to make out from the eyes of the students that they are, doing some naughty stuff, or they're not studying, or they're not following us. So the saying that eye is extension of brain and window of soul. Eye movement is an extremely important element of body language and intentions of a person. Eye expresses how deeply a person is involved in the conversation or how a person is, whether a person is interested in the lecture or not. Students looking at a teacher while he or she is teaching implies that they are paying attention. But if they are watching outside the window, it shows their inattentiveness. Eye contact is of paramount importance in face-to-face interaction. Long eye contact reflects interest, confidence, and pride, whereas brief eye contact indicates disinterest, nervousness, and embarrassment. Eye contact is a means of gaining feedback and it enables the speaker to alter, adjust, and reframe his message. Language of eye is universal in almost all the cultures. Then comes face. Face is the most expressive part of the body. It expresses what is going on within the mind of an individual or the student. Whatever a person feels deep inside is reflected on his or her face. The lines of forehead, the muscles of cheeks, the eyebrows and lips communicate the feelings, thought and intention of a person very well. In general, face and facial expressions can be said the true index of one emotional and thinking behavior. When one is perturbed, his or her face reflects the level of anxiety and stress. Similarly, when one is happy or joyful or in a joyful mood, his or her facial expression conveys the same to others. It is why we can easily conclude that one is angry, fearful, jealous, astonished, or showing love, sympathy, or hatred. Much of the language of facial expression is almost similar and universal all around the world. Then comes posture. Posture refers to the way of standing, sitting, lying, and walking. So during online classes, we are unable to see what the students are doing, whether they are lying down, whether they are sleeping, or what. But in the online class, in the offline classes, were able to see all these things. We were able to notice all these things. The way in which a person sits, stands, or walks makes the difference. Standing or sitting erect, leaning forward or backward make an immediate impression on the mind of other person. Erect posture, it conveys confidence. Bent posture reflects thinking, and relaxed posture indicates balanced state of mind. So now coming to gestures. So gestures refer to the motion of hands or other body parts to emphasize certain points. Because we, as a student of or as a teacher of English, literature or language, we apply all these, elements of body language. Like suppose we sometimes when we explain poem or drama or novel, we actually make use of our hands. Our gesture changes, the motion of hands or, we emphasize certain things, we speak some certain things, but these things are absent in online classes. Then comes personal appearance. So physical appearance includes, a person's way of dressing. Good appearance, it attracts the attention of everybody and it acts as a significant non-verbal view. Whenever, students used to come in school well-dressed, in college well-dressed, then we used to, draw an impression, draw a conclusion that yes, the student is very much, excited to attend the class. But now we actually don't know what they are doing at home, whether they are sleeping or what they are doing. So these things are, completely absent in online classes. Now comes a very important aspect of non-verbal communication, which is chronemics. So chronemics is a study of how human beings communicate through their use of time. We attempt to control time, trying to use it more effectively. Good timing is very crucial, and you should rehearse a formal presentation until it is a little underlined, because staying within time limit is a mark of courtesy and professionalism. So, chronemics refers to a communication-based understanding of time, and it basically refers to the study of usage of time. It involves the meaning given to the time dimension. It deals with the manner in which one structure one's time and interaction. Because time is an important component of non-verbal communication. And in online classes, what happens is that due to technical glitches and technological failures, students were unable to join the meeting on time, join the classes on time. So the whole chronemic stuff, this aspect of non-verbal communication was badly disrupted in online teaching. And because if you're on time, then obviously the other person will have a good impression about you. Then comes haptics. It is also, a form of non-verbal communication. So the way we communicate by our physical contact or by touching the other person is known as haptics. Many times, it used to happen in the class, in the offline class, that whenever any student, used to answer any question correctly, then we used to give a pat on their back, or, we used to clap, or we used to shake hands to congratulate them. But these things are, totally in a state of extinction actually in online classes. Now comes para language, the most important. Paralanguage is also known as vocalics. It is a component of meta communication that may modify meaning, give nuanced meaning, or convey emotion by using techniques such as prosody, pitch, volume, intonation, etc. And it is sometimes defined as relating to non-phonemic properties only. So, paralanguage is the term actually consists of two words. Para meaning like or similar to, and language, mode of communication. So paralanguage literally means like language, but actually it is not verbal. However, words are used in paralanguage, but the language focuses on how rather than what. It lays stress on how the words are spoken rather than on their literal meaning. It aims at the tone of voice with which something is said. For example, louder voice suggests anger or assertion, while a whisper indicates secrecy. We are teaching English literature and language. We are not teaching computer science, or we are not teaching mathematics that a squared minus b squared is equal to a plus b into a minus b. Or we are not teaching computer science that yes, keyboard, mouse, and scanner are input devices. No, when we teach, there is an emotion, there is expression. The language plays a significant role in teaching English literature, in English language. And that is where paralanguage, takes its role. But this paralanguage is badly disrupted in online teaching, because we are somehow able to deliver our lecture. We are somehow able to speak, and we are actually not able to include the aspect of paralanguage, in our communication during online teaching. So, paralanguage includes these different dimensions, vocalization of words, which is based on different dimensions like volume variation, pitch variation, speed of speaking, pauses, word stress. And these components, they form, a part of para language. Yes. So volume variation is sound energy while speaking. The amount of energy given while speaking depends on the distance between the speaker and the listener, and also on the emotional state of the speaker. If the speaker is angry, then the sound energy is high, but in intimate conversation, it is very low. Sound energy is also a very good indicator of the rank of the speaker. Then comes pitch variation. It refers to the shrillness of sound, which makes oral communication dynamic. Then comes the speed of speaking. It refers to whether the person speaking is relaxed or in a hurry. But this should not be confused with fluency, because fluency in a language is very different from the speed of speaking. Then comes pauses. Pauses are also very significant while speaking, as they provide the necessary gap for the receiver to grasp the messages. Well-timed pauses can be very dramatic. Then comes word stress. When we speak, the meaning is not there in the words spoken, but the way in which we stress on a particular word. For example, after evaluating your assignment, your teacher comes to the class and says, "Is this how you work?" And the same statement can be spoken in these many ways, in 4 ways, And I have written 4 times this very statement, because the bold words, wherever the bold words are there, they are stressed. Okay. So I will explain you how. And this word stress is also missing in online classes. So in the first instance, you can see that the bold is this. Is this how you work? So in the first instance, your teacher was pointing towards the assignment and probably commenting on the shabbiness of the work done. Now let's see the next statement. Is this how you work? Then in the second instance, probably she was referring to the way in which the work has been done. Then let's look at the third statement. Is this how you work? Then in this tense, she would have been referring to the people, or you have done the work shabbily. Okay. Then in the fourth statement, it is there, the bold word is work. Is this how you work? In this, she was referring to the work itself. And now I can see, then practice it yourself. This is a poem by Robert Frost. I've taken 4 lines of it. If I speak like this, just like this, without the paralanguage, then it will be like this. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I... No, this shouldn't be the way. We are not robots. We are not computer science students. We are not mathematics students. We have to, generate emotion. We have to use paralanguage. We can speak like this in a proper way, using paralanguage, not the non-verbal communication. Example. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. With this, I end my session. Thank you so much.
Hello, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for wonderful presentation. Now, the Q&A session is open for discussion. In chat box, Zoom chat box, I can see 3 questions, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
The first question is there any way to compensate lack of non-verbal communication during online teaching?
No, at present there is no way to compensate lack of, because still actually our country will become digital India, then only it will be possible, because there are so many students who are in the rural area and they are not able to even like avail these technology based services. So this thing will be disrupted for the next 5 years. After 5 years the progress can be attained.
And, thank you, ma'am. One participant has asked, what makes good verbal communication?
Verbal communication, it should talk some sense, and whatever message you are delivering, it should be clear to the receiver. It should be, the clarity should be there, conciseness, clarity should be there. So, and consideration should also be there. The 7 C's of communication will be we will apply over here, and only then the good verbal communication or the communication verbal communication will be a great success when you are able to deliver your intended meaning in the proper way.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, one question. It is the last question. Please give us some tips for the beginners who wants to improve their communication skill and wants to speak English, but they are having hesitation. They cannot speak just because of the hesitation they are having in their mind.
Yeah, for this what you can do is that you can buy obviously basic books of English grammar, and the best way to practice is that you practice it before a mirror, because when you practice before a mirror, there's nobody to judge you except you, and there you are even able to see your facial expressions also, your confidence level, everything will go high if you practice before a mirror, and then you talk to yourself, you try talking to yourself, whatever even you think, which is known as intrapersonal communication. When you do inner talk, when you do when you talk to yourself, then also you think in English. When you start thinking in English, then only you'll start speaking good English actually.
Okay. Because practice makes a man
Man
complete.
perfect, exactly.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
Welcome.
Uh, Francis Bacon said in his essay of studies, I quote, studies serve for delight, for ornament, and for ability. And ma'am, you truly expanded these lines in your presentation. And you focused on communication, process of communication, and components of teaching. And you highlighted that channel is very important during online classes. And you talked on the advantages of feedback because it is a tool and it determines the success and failure of outcome. And you emphasized on interactive communication. There should be interaction between the
Interaction.
teacher and the learner. And you also talked about the technical problems, which are great hindrance in online teaching. As you said that the students, they just make excuse that there is some technological problem and they just quit from the session. And also you focused on vocalization of words, which is very important in communication. So it was such a wonderful presentation, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And it will helpful for all the teachers, the participants, and the students who are participating in this workshop. Now, it is a time of proposing the formal vote of thanks. So first of all, my humble gratitude to Lord Almighty for showering upon us His kindness and blessings, and my heartful thanks and sincere gratitude to you, ma'am, because you just came and you just consented your, you are so busy, and I was in contact with you, and I'm also thankful to Dr. Nargis Tabassum because of her, I could contact you and could invite you. Thank you so much, ma'am. And my humble gratitude to our patron and principal, Dr. Aarti Tiwari, ma'am, who motivated and inspired us to organize this workshop and always stand with us for every support. And my special thanks to Dr. Kavita Krishnamurthy, organizing secretary of this workshop, who always helps me at every step. I'm highly thankful to all the advisory committee and technical staff, especially Prakash Shukla, for his support and for his help. And my warm and heartful thanks to all the teachers, participants, students, research scholars, and viewers who are participating in this web workshop from different parts of country. So again, I'm highly thankful to you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Aradhana ma'am. Thank you so much, Kavita ma'am, and thank you so much, Aarti ma'am. For like calling me as a resource person. It was really an honor, and I wish all the best to the government PG Larry College, and we'll stay connected in future also. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You can leave, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.